I can't necessarily provide some of those answers today. The fact of it is I don't know if we'll ever know the why of why this happened. My detectives, my crime scene, my officers with Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office have, lack of a better term, worked their butts off for the last 48 hours trying to come to some type of answers to your questions. I know you have them just like I do. Law enforcement is there to kind of put the puzzle pieces together. We're not there during that period of time, but we're certainly not going to go off of conjecture, off of sources, off of social media in order to find out what that picture is. For the last 48 hours, my detectives have collected over 200 pieces of evidence. We had a total of 8 shooters, including the suspect. Taken almost 3,000 photographs. We had 3 autopsies with the Jefferson Parish Coroner's Office, 25 witness statements, almost 100 different firearms casings that have been recovered, an additional 2 wounded employees that went to the hospital. Trying in order to get the information to paint the picture. We're going to try to paint that picture of what occurred that day. Again, I don't know if I can ever tell you why it occurred. What we know is Joshua Williams, suspect in this case, entered into the location with his brother Timothy Williams and Timothy Williams' 2 children, who were 7 and 9. Purportedly, they were there to buy ammunition. They were in the store for approximately 7 minutes, conversing with clerks, picking out ammunition that they needed. Joshua Williams does not have a lengthy criminal history. He's been arrested, I think, for DWI, some traffic offenses, and maybe a simple criminal damage. He's actually a concealed weapons permit holder at that time, but was inside the store with a weapon, with an extended magazine that was protruding and visible to the clerks. The store, being a gun shop, does not allow weapons to be able to carry in that manner inside the gun store until you're actually to the range itself. They recognized that he had a gun on him, and they asked him, "You have a gun on you?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Well, is it loaded?" He said, "No." He said, "Well, then it needs to be cleared. I need to make sure that the gun is cleared, or you have to bring it outside." There was no argument between the two. There was no argument between the clerks or Mr. Williams at that time. He did not want to necessarily go outside to put his gun. Mr. Timothy Williams had admitted that he had his gun on him earlier and actually left it in the vehicle because he knows the rules about bringing it into the gun store. Joshua Williams was not really confrontational from that standpoint. He didn't want to necessarily bring his gun to the car, but he was cooperating because mainly his brother told him to cooperate, and he was walking out the door. There was no angst, I would say, between the employees. Joshua Williams walked to the front door as if he was walking out to the car. When he got out to the door itself, he opened up the door, standing in the door, opening it with it, keeping it open with his body. He produced the firearm at that time, and he actually took a shot outside into the parking lot, probably out over Airline Highway. When he took that shot, he immediately turned the gun inward towards the store. That's where Miss Veronica Billiot was standing. She obviously heard the first shot, from what we can gather from the videotape that we were able to see. Miss Billiot was, I guess, looking to exit towards the door. I guess is what was going on, as she seemed to be startled. And Mr. Williams trained his gun on Miss Billiot, firing at least 2 rounds at that time, hitting her and striking her. She ended up falling directly down to the ground after that exchange of gunfire. Then Mr. Williams trained the gun back towards the counter and exchanged rounds of bullets with several employees that were back behind the counter. He hit one of those employees in the arm and exited the store, along with one of the juveniles that happened to be in the store. He exited the store. You can see him in the front parking lot for approximately 8 seconds. Then he attempts to re-enter the store. As he attempts to re-enter the store, he is blocked by the bar that actually is across the glass door. The glass has been blown out by this time, so he runs into the bar, decides to reopen the door and re-enter the store. The employees at this time are covering. They are down on the ground behind the counter. No one is shooting at Mr. Williams. No one is, they believe he fled him. If I can view the video correctly, it looks like he fled. And Mr. Williams travels into the store. His brother, who is laid out on the ground with the other child, is seen waving at his brother, like, "Get out of here." As he walks past the brother grabs his child, and he also runs out the store. Mr. Joshua Williams, as he passes the counter, turns and sees Noah Fischbach on the ground with his back towards him. Noah looked like he was reaching for another gun, trying to attempt to get another gun, but in my opinion, probably did not know Mr. Williams had re-entered the store. He is on the ground with his back towards Mr. Williams when he fires 2 shots into him, one of those wounds being fatal to Noah Fischbach at that time. Mr. Williams then continues to go down the hallway into the back range, looking for, I guess additional victims. He then decides to proceed back to the front of the store, where he opens the door for a moment, encounters one of the employees, and retreats back into the store. When he retreats back into the store, he decides to come out the 3rd time, and as he comes out the 3rd time, he is encountered by several employees. He exchanges fire with one of them, in which he strikes one of those employees in the leg, and then several other of the employees who had exited through other exits through that store, who were at other places of the store and encountered him in the front parking lot, where they exchanged additional rounds, ultimately leading to the death of Joshua Williams. We had a total of 7 employee shooters, including Mr. Noah Fischbach, and the 1 actual shooter. I did say at the original scene that we may have had customers that had fired. There were no customers that fired any shots at this situation. It was all the original shooter, Mr. Joshua Williams, and the 7 employee shooters, all with some sort of training, whether it's concealed weapons, security guard training, and different things that put them into that location. We are going to release a few different videos today. This store had extensive video photography measures, probably 15, 16 different cameras of all different angles. I'm going to cut several of these videos short. Out of the respect for these families that lost loved ones, we're going to set a little bit of a picture here today, but I'm certainly not going to release them all for that. Additionally, with some still shots from it. I want to thank a lot of people. A lot of people really helped out in this investigation, specifically my homicide division, our crime scene, our crime lab, who've worked nonstop in order to produce the evidence that I've been able to share with you today. This investigation is not over. We've got a lot of ballistic analysis that we have to do, working with the coroner's office, matching up to the guns, the casings, the projectiles, doing additional search warrants on vehicles that we had towed from the location, on the cell phones that we have seized. So the investigation is not over. I'm merely having this update today to give you all a better picture of what happened. Our coroner's office, obviously, ATF, who helped out tremendously, showing up at the scene, along with all of our federal partners in the FBI. I had comments from Governor John Bell Edwards, Louisiana State Police, for offering their help, our EMS services, who came to a scene with 5 potential victims and had to triage those victims and get them to the hospital or determine their death on the scene. And our JPSO chaplains, who had several of our members out there to comfort the victims' families that arrived on the scene, along with the employees of the Jefferson Gun Outlet. And I want to make sure that I thank those employees. Those employees did not come to work looking for a fight that day. They were put into a decision-making process that they did not ask for. But they acted calm, collectively, and really protected a lot of people that day. There was a concealed weapons permit class going on upstairs. They were able to secure the members within that room, and then took their own lives at hand in order to exit and to be able to take other positions. And they really did a good job out there of making a horrible situation, which could have been a lot worse at the end of it. And I think it's just important to be able to recognize them for what they had to deal with that day. A few things that we're going to video. I guess that we'll go with the videos first, and we'll release some different spills. We're going to do. Our first video is going to be the initial gunshot outside by Mr. Joshua Williams. You'll see him as he opens up the door outside, drawing the weapon, and then shooting it out into the air over Airline Drive and over really LaSalle Park. And all of these will be released to you along with our press release after this release. If you can see that video, So we'll play it again. After he makes the first shot, he immediately turns inside and shoots additional rounds. The next 2 rounds are the ones that he actually shot into Miss Billiot. Our next video will be cut short because it includes the death of Miss Billiot, and I don't believe it's appropriate in order to be able to do so. But you will see him turn the gun inside, and it's going to end where he is pointing the gun at Miss Billiot for the initial shot. Unfortunately, if we go any additional frames, it's just not something I'm comfortable sharing, and not going to. The next video that we have is after the suspect shoots Miss Billiot. He has an initial round of shots with several of the employees. He exits the building. He's outside for approximately 7 or 8 seconds before he re-enters the building. When he re-enters the building, as I said, the employees were no longer shooting back at him. They were covered back behind the counter, probably not knowing that he was in there. He walks around to the counter. That's a still shot of him advancing back into the building. He walks to the counter where you will see him face to his left and fire 2 rounds. Those are the 2 rounds that he fired at and ultimately struck Noah Fischbach. Immediately thereafter, he walks down the hallway, purportedly, I guess, looking for other victims. But you'll see right here, he shoots 2 rounds and then walks back looking for other individuals. And if you notice at the top of that screen, you will see footprints of footsteps of someone running back. That's his brother getting up, running out the store with the other juvenile as he walked past them. You know, I think this paints a little bit better picture. As I said from the beginning, I'll say now, and I had the conversations with the family, I don't know why. You know, there's certain crimes that happen in your career, and this is the one for me. You know, there's no reason that it ever should have turned to this event. I don't know what was going through Joshua Williams' mind. Timothy Williams, the brother, cooperated with the investigation, came in and gave a statement and basically said he believed his brother flipped out. He wanted to apologize to the employees of the gun shop. He didn't have any answers for us either to say that that was the case. I think we'll always look for those answers of what happened, you know, but unfortunately, 2 innocent people lost their lives in this case for the actions of one. And with that, y'all, I'll take any questions that y'all may have.
That last video, that's the moment when he turns to the left and shoots. That's when he shoots.
That's when he shoots Noah, correct.
And then when you named Noah Fischbach as one of the 8 shooters, he returned fire after Williams shot Billiot. When did
correct? Yeah. So the inside employees, 3 inside employees, shot initially during the exchange when Billiot was shot.
And
Noah Fischbach was one of those shooters. Then you had 4 employees on the outside that exchanged gunfire with him on the outside.
Do we know when Williams was fatally wounded, inside or out?
I don't believe Williams was hit inside at all. But I don't necessarily know that until all of our ballistics come back. But judging from the videotapes, it did not appear that he was under any type of distress at that point in time. So I do not believe he was struck by any of the inside bullets, but that's speculation at this point. You know, obviously we're going to take the evidence that we've learned in the autopsies and let our reconstructionists do that, and you know, we'll let them do their job to be able to do that. And I think it's too preliminary with the amount of weapons that were fired. They have not been able to run that analysis yet.
Is that 8 guns?
There was a total of 8 guns. We ended up collecting another 2 from Joshua Williams' vehicle. So there's officially 10 guns that were collected, but 8 guns that were fired on the scene.
How How long was this from start to finish?
Oh, I mean, less than 2 minutes. You know, I think that's I didn't tape it to me. I mean, we obviously had that information, but I never asked. But I mean, less than 2 minutes. I mean, it was a very quick process. In fact, I know there's, I mean, I would venture to say it may have been closer to a minute, but you know, when you actually count down 60 seconds, that's a lot longer than you'll ever imagine.
It looks like in the video that Mr. Williams is yelling or screaming something. Do you have audio on this? Do you know what he's saying?
No, the video does not have any audio attached to it. I don't know if he's screaming at that moment. I mean, it looks like he's angry as he's going down the hallway. You can speculate on that, but I don't have any audio that would go either way.
And Veronica Billiot wasn't armed.
Veronica Billiot was not, well, she was not armed. I think she had literally got there maybe a minute or two before this happened. I think she was there to pick up a gun, but there's no indication by any means that she even picked up the gun yet. I don't know the contents of her purse to say it was in that, if something was in there, but I don't think she'd know, and I'm being told that no, she was not armed. She did not even have one in her purse.
And Sheriff, you kind of said there was no argument. I mean, it looked as though he was complying and was actually walking outside, so there was absolutely no indication that this was a violent crime.
Yeah, I think they asked him if he had a loaded weapon. He said it's not loaded. They asked him if it was, show me that it's cleared. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, then you got to go put it in your car. And that was the conversation that was had. It didn't appear to be confrontational between the two. If you look at the clerk's demeanors that were there, they weren't alarmed by any means. It was a customer that came in with a gun that either go put it in your car or it's got to come in the case. And they were doing their job that day, and it didn't appear that anything was out of the ordinary from the views of the video and the statements of the surviving witnesses.
But he walks out, shoots across airline basically, and then turns around and opens fire.
Turns around and you know, trains his gun on Miss Billiot, who, in my opinion, happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Was it Noah Fischbach? Was he the one who asked him to put the gun out, or was it a different person?
I believe Noah was the one that asked him, but I think it was him and the other clerk. I think they noticed at the same time. And so you have one clerk that was shot in the arm. I believe that was in the initial volley of gunfire back, and then Noah ended up getting shot, you know, several seconds later when he re-entered the store. But I do believe Noah was one of the clerks that said, you got to go outside.
One follow-up to something you touched on. You mentioned the concealed carry class. I spoke with someone who was there who described the instructor's actions. He said that they barred the door, that they saved lives in the moment and then also afterwards asking for a tourniquet and assisting with aid. Can you talk about any of those specifics with those instructors?
You know, so without a doubt, they ended up leaving one of the instructors upstairs with the concealed weapons carry class. I know of at least two of them that exited that time. When they came down, one of their colleagues had been shot in the leg. They brought him down that side alleyway and applied a tourniquet on him while they were still exchanging gunfire with Mr. Williams. And so the thanks without a doubt goes to them. They put their lives at risk in order to make sure they could protect others, and they didn't know what was going on. Let's face it, they were upstairs just hearing a barrage of gunfire that they knew didn't sound like it was coming from the range, and so you know, they'll have to go further into those stories. I haven't spoken with them specifically, but you know, that's the facts of what happened to them coming down that side alleyway and having to deal with their shot colleague.
Do you believe if Williams wasn't killed, he would have shot more people?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Do you believe if Williams wasn't killed, he would have shot more people?
Well, yes and no. I believe without a doubt he was looking to shoot more people until he ran out of bullets. His magazine carried a potential of 31 rounds plus another one in the chamber. He potentially could have had 32 rounds. He emptied all 32 of them. Now, whether or not if he would have got to his vehicle, he would have got more, that's completely speculation. But there's no doubt he didn't stop shooting until, you know, he was encountered by other individuals.
And Williams was shot inside, correct?
No, I don't believe Williams was shot until outside.
Okay, because I noticed it was
Yeah.
in the parking lot.
Yeah.
A clarification on the injuries that it made to Jerry. For Ms. Billiot, she was shot twice, and Noah was shot
She's,
twice?
no, I think, I think Ms. Williams is going to have several different shots from her. We're going to make a determination fatal. We have to run the ballistics on that. So I'd rather not go into, you know, the exact cause of death at this point in time because it's obvious that she shot her. We know we have some ballistic evidence that we shot her, but we want to make sure that all the tracking follows the certain ballistics that we have, right? Yeah, she was shot multiple times. Same with Mr. Williams, was shot multiple times. I think Mr. Fischbach was shot once. He was shot at twice, but he had one penetrating entry wound, one penetrating exit wound.
And he was turned, so it was in his back?
It was in his back, correct.
Was he kneeling on, you all said that when Williams came back in, everybody was kind of sheltering. Was he on the ground?
He was on the ground, yes.
Joe, you want me to just answer, I have very short.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. You know, my office came in yesterday and performed all 3 autopsies. Dr. Ellen Connor and Dr. Dana Trosclair performed the autopsies. They're both board-certified forensic pathologists. Like the sheriff said, Mr. Fischbach had 1 gunshot wound. The other 2 had multiple gunshot wounds, and when there's a gunshot, you can have an entry, you can have an exit. Sometimes it can exit through the entry wound. So there's a whole lot going on that's going to take a lot of investigation and coordination between us and the sheriff's department. So I'm not going to get into the number of gunshots at this point that either of them had, nor am I going to give any other information at this point.
The employee, the first employee you shot was shot in the arm. He was the survivor that was
Correct.
inside during that first exchange of gunfire. The second employee was shot in the leg in that exchange in the parking lot.
That is correct. Both of those, I believe both have been released to the hospital. I know one has been released from the hospital, but do we know both? Yeah,
The
both.
genders, man inside?
Both men.
Both men.
Sheriff, is this a situation where all of the shootings were justified, or is there a chance in this case where, I mean, we look at legally in this case, is it all kind of self-defense?
Like any shooting, I'm going to take all the evidence that we collect on the scene, and we'll turn any of that over to the district attorney's office. In my sheriff's opinion, my legal opinion, yes, I would say they're all justified. But that's something that we don't necessarily make that determination as the sheriff's office. We collect the evidence. We collect the evidence. We collect the statements. We provide all that information to the district attorney's office for them to make their determination. But I think that's a safe statement by me.
Just to clarify too, Sheriff, you said he went out, he came back in, he went out again, and that was the final shooting, or did he go out twice and then?
That was the third time.
If you count the first time when he went out after the initial volley, right, the initial shots where he shoots Billiot and gets shot at by them, then he comes back inside. He walks down, shoots Mr. Noah Fischbach, walks into the hallway. He walks back outside merely for a second, encounters another person, but walks back in immediately. Then comes back out a third time. Now, all of this happens within seconds, but he goes back out a third time, and the third time is when he encounters several employees, and then end up being more employees in the parking lot.
That was 3 employees outside, right?
I think it was a total of 4 employees outside.
The 2 children, they were not injured.
They were not injured, no.
And they weren't Williams, they were Timothy Williams.
They were Timothy Williams, the brother's kids, from what I understand. Anything else, Sean? All right. Y'all have a great day.